Hello there. One of my members asked me to do a video about shore fishing a lake and some tactics that I use. First and foremost, you need to find a lake that has shore access, and not just shore access. You want to make sure that the bottom is something that you can walk on. There's a lot of lakes that have just a really mushy bottom, and you can actually get yourself in trouble trying to wade those things because you get stuck in the mud, you start losing your boots, or God forbid fall in, and now you just can't stand up because it's nothing but muck. So a lot of it's trial and error, right? You got to go find some of these lakes and just check them out to see if it has a walkable bottom. I've been to some lakes in Alaska that had a nice hard bottom, and I was able to walk around almost a mile. This particular lake has a big rocky bottom, right? There's no mush at all. So that's the first thing, right? You got to have something that you know that's wadeable. And then once you find something that's wadeable, what I do is I'll fish along the shoreline first. You can see a pronounced drop off, right? And several drop offs in this particular lake. Sometimes I'll fish shallow, right up the coastline here. Then I'll angle it out a little bit further. And now I'm throwing it off the shelf and I'm letting it sink and strip it in. And then I'll throw it out straight out in front of me where I know it's really deep. Let that thing sink and strip it in. So some of the things I use when fishing from shore is I'm doing the standard, right? I've got 3 setups ready to go, right? I've got my streamer setup, which I just happen to have on floating line and a long leader. I've got my Oros indicator and chironomid. It's kind of a chirono leech, right? I have a leech with a chironomid dropper, and sometimes I'm fishing with the indicator. And then sometimes it's dry fly, right? You got to pay attention. There are times where you'll have some nice hatches on lakes. So you want to have an assortment of dry flies as well. You don't necessarily have to have 3 rods with you, but I'm always looking to see what's happening and changing up to match whatever it is that I think might be happening. So it's the same as rivers, right? You're going to have hatches, big dry fly hatches that happen on lakes. But before that, you have chironomids that are coming up, pre-emergers right on top. So you do have to kind of pay attention to what's happening on the lake and be prepared to switch up. And don't be afraid to switch up. Part of the reason why I catch a lot of fish is because I'll keep fishing a certain way, and if I'm not catching fish, I'm switching up, right? I'm switching to a new fly, a new streamer, a new way. It kind of slowed down for me today, so I tied on my chirono leech, which is a leech with a chironomid dropper, and immediately caught a couple fish. So change it up, always be on the move, and you're gonna find a lot more success when fishing from the shore. And I'm just kind of fishing the shoreline like a grid. So then once I fished it like a grid, I move down. So I've probably walked almost a mile now down the shoreline here, just spending my time fishing, maybe 5 minutes before I'm moving down again, and I fish the whole shoreline. So that's kind of the tactics that I use. I'm using floating line. A lot of times, sink tips can be handy at times, but the fish are pretty deep here, but I've got a long leader on. I've got a 12-foot leader on my fly rod here and a heavy fly, and I'm just letting that fly sink. So instead of using a sink tip, which can be tough to cast, I'm letting my line sink, and then I start stripping it in. And I've caught fish when the fly is dropping, when I first start, and sometimes even right up where I'm casting, right? I fish it all the way into the floating lines starting to go into my rod, and that's when I know I'm done fishing that particular cast. So there's a myriad of different things you can do to find success when fly fishing lakes from shore, but really it has to do with bottom, and then you're doing all the typical things that you've done from a boat or a float tube, but you're doing it from shore. And you're fishing ledges, right? You're fishing, if you can see rocks down below, if you can see stumps down below. Fish like to hide there for cover, so be sure to target those areas when you're fishing lakes from shore. And then grit it out, right? See if I can not fall on my butt. And then grit it out, right? I'm fishing along the shoreline because sometimes the fish are hugging. I'm fishing just off the shoreline, straight off the shoreline. So if you take the time and kind of grit it out and then walk down, moving is important too. If I get into some fish, I might stick to that spot for maybe 20 minutes. And now you can see how far I've walked. I'm gonna go back to where my gear is and kind of start over because I've rested those spots, and maybe there'll be fish that'll be back there. So, all right, well, All right, well, if you need some help with your chironomid fishing, check out this video here. This has helped a lot of people with stillwater tactics using chironomids. These things are deadly on lakes. All right, everybody, till the next time, fish on.